On this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast, I'm looking back, or behind if you will, at a vault track from the Purple Rain era, and that's Wonderful Ass. Officially released on the Purple Rain Deluxe from 2017, Wonderful Ass was estimated to have been tracked in either January of 83 or November of 82 at Prince's Kiowa Trail home studio in Chanhassen. Additional work was done on the track by Wendy and Lisa, likely in September of 84, at Sunset Sound Studios, where they added their own vocals, as well as additional instrumentation. At this point, it was likely to be included on the Roadhouse Garden project, which wasn't conceptualized until the late 90s, but that project was abandoned, as we know. And the original 83 version, or early 83, late 82 version, with Jill Jones on vocals, may have been intended for Vanity 6's second album, but it's unclear and unconfirmed what Prince had in mind for Wonderful Ass, to be quite honest with you. And why then he asked Wendy and Lisa to do additional work on it in 84. Again, unclear. I don't know if this was going to be something for a future Apollonia 6 project, Sheila E. project, maybe for some other protege that we weren't aware of at the time. Maybe Susanna Melvoin before she was part of the family. Who knows? I'm just speculating at this point. Additionally, the track was also to be included on the never-released Crystal Ball 2 project in the early 2000s. So a lot of these vault tracks from the early to mid-80s that didn't find their way onto Crystal Ball 1 in the 90s were likely going to be on Crystal Ball 2 based off of their notoriety and popularity with the Prince fans who were voting on the tracks to go on Crystal Ball 2. According to Prince Vault, there was additional work done on the track in March of 1986. Maybe for a B-side? Again, I have no idea what Prince had in mind for this song, but, a few different attempts in the studio to get basic tracking, additional work with Wendy and Lisa, and then jumping back in the studio in 86 to work on it again. I guess he had hopes for this song, but it never found its way onto a B-side, onto a protege project. Nobody covered it. It just sat in the vault until 2017. And the version that we got in 2017 was the 84 version worked on by Wendy and Lisa. So Prince is not being subtle here on Wonderful Ass. The title of the song gives away its theme, its intention. It's kind of going to be one of those early body Prince songs like Head and We Can Fuck, and it falls right in line with those overtly sexual, uncoded, and simple fun sex songs, or at least simple fun sex related. I mean, there isn't a lot of actual sex happening in this song. It's just mostly about referring to a person's behind as being wonderful and kind of being the reason why, Prince and or Wendy and Lisa, since their vocals are all kind of intertwined, why they're able to look past maybe some of the faults of the person they're attracted to because they have a wonderful ass. So, allegedly the song was written about vanity, which makes sense if it was, written in late 82, early 83, as the original tracking indicates. But by 84, of course, vanity was no longer part of Prince's life. She had or she had bowed out of the Purple Rain project. Apollonia had taken her place in the movie. He had a couple of different women that he had his eye on post Vanity. Sheila E., of course, is one. Susanna Melvoin was another. And there may even be additional women. Jill Jones was always in the mix in terms of being a potential romantic interest of his, and vice versa. So I think there's a few different women that could be looked at as being a potential inspiration, but if you look at it based on when it was written, it likely would have been Vanity. That just seems the most likely. However, adding Wendy and Lisa's additional vocals to it as two gay women performing and participating in the recording of this song, then it brings a whole different aspect to it. They weren't likely thinking about Vanity, or it'd be really weird for Wendy to be thinking about her twin sisters behind. Lisa could have been singing about, thinking about Wendy's butt at the time when she was singing. Not maybe when Wendy was thinking of the same. Maybe Lisa. Maybe there was some other. Maybe Prince has a wonderful ass. Prince has always kind of teased his audience about how fine his ass is on stage and certainly in concerts and music videos, showing off his derriere is something that an aspect of his body that he's proud of and feels like he has a leg up or a butt up, so to speak, on the competition when it comes to his body and his butt. So, Wonderful Ass is just kind of like, who knows, who cares what the inspiration was. There's a lot of great asses out there, so why does it have to be, just one person in particular that this song is written about? I don't know. Everybody's got a story, right? There's been a few different stories floating around about who was the inspiration. Your guess is as good as mine. I wasn't Prince, and I wasn't there, so we're just throwing around some names of individuals who were within his, periphery and in his circle at that time, who he could have been romantically interested in and admired the butt of those person or persons, and composited them into a fun little song called Wonderful Ass. From a lyrical perspective, the song isn't deep. It is not, doesn't have a lot of depth to it. There are pretty straightforward lines in the song. The chorus is pretty straightforward. It's all about the attitude and the groove, and using that bouncy synths and Lindrum sound that was very popular and common in Prince's music around this time. So it from a sound standpoint, it certainly fits into that 83, 84 era that it was recorded in. And like I said, with Wendy and Lisa's vocals intertwined in with Prince's, you get like this male-female dynamic that doesn't... Not to say that this song is misogynist anyway, even if a man was just singing it straight with no female accompaniments. But when you have both Prince and Wendy and Lisa singing it, it just opens up the possibilities of interpretation, or those who are listening to it can think of themselves as the protagonist, potentially. Hearing Wendy and Lisa's vocals may think, a woman may be thinking as she's listening to this song that it's a song about women's ability to kind of own their sexuality and flip the script a little bit on the traditional and stereotypical male gaze towards women, and how that can be perceived as being misogynist, especially if there's catcalling involved and treating women like sex objects. Here, Wendy and Lisa, their vocals being so prominent, can give the listener a little bit of, like I said, turning the tables on that stereotype and on that trope, in thinking now, hey, women can be aggressors when it comes to expressing sexual desire and sexual interest in somebody from the opposite or same sex, I guess. So there's no reason why a woman can't come up to a man or a woman that she's interested in and say, damn, you've got a wonderful ass. and that's fine as long as it's received well by the person of interest, by the recipient. And if it's not, then that person needs to back down, obviously, just like a man would have to. Doesn't make it right just because you're a woman to say you've got a nice ass, and if that is unwelcomed advances or unwelcomed behavior, doesn't make it okay just because it's a woman. So I don't get that there's a lot of negative feelings on the person who's receiving this message from Prince, Wendy, and Lisa. I don't get the intention that it's supposed to be obtrusive and unwelcomed behavior. I think it's intended to be more like they're kind of in a relationship already, and this song is supposed to be more jovial and playful. The first verse: you do not understand my quirky ways. My crazy logic leaves you in a daze. You think my neurosis is just a phase. Girl, you've got a wonderful ass. So yeah, here, in the first verse, they're just trying to explain, they, meaning the singers of the song, just trying to explain themselves. Like, here's who I am. This is what I'm about. You think that I'm neurotic. You think that I'm crazy and quirky. And maybe that's true, but I'm just going to really simplify my message. I'm going to narrow my scope and just tell you, I think you've got a wonderful ass. And maybe you'll look past my quirks and my craziness and my neuroses and accept my compliment. And like I said, look past all the rest. And because Wendy and Lisa are gay women, although I don't know if that was common knowledge in 1984, at least it wasn't for me, the fact that there's a pronoun, girl, you've got a wonderful ass, that's being sung by Prince, Wendy, and Lisa, it gives, I don't know, it works. I mean, it gives it a little more of an edge. But, playing around with gender roles and gender dynamics was a pretty common thing in the 80s. It was not unusual for men to be in music videos and performing with full makeup on, just really glamming it up as much as possible. And then on the flip side of that, women dressing as masculinely as possible in order to kind of subvert some of those traditional gender stereotypes, especially in an MTV era where image was everything, to present an image that was a bit out of the norm, garnered attention, some positively, some negatively, but attention nonetheless. And the chorus is a simple, it's so wonderful, you've got a wonderful ass. So wonderful. It's so wonderful, you've got a wonderful ass. That's the chorus. Just reiterating basically the last line of the verse. You think that all my friends are my bedmates. True love before sex, you just can't relate. My sensibilities you aggravate. You've got a wonderful ass. So now the first verse was more about the singers trying to defend themselves a little bit, or at least try to disarm the person by calling out their own flaws and then punctuating that with a compliment, even if it was, maybe a little more brazen. Not like, oh, you got pretty eyes, or I love your personality. Like, you got a great ass. Hope you appreciate that I am that upfront with you. The second verse is the singer's on the defensive again, but now throwing it back towards the person with the wonderful ass, like, hey, you think that I'm a slut. You think that I'm a hoe just because I've got all these friends and I hang around them a lot, and your assumption is that I'm sleeping with them. In reality, I think that person maybe is just a little bit jealous, and they can't understand why the singer is not having sex with all of these people, because they're not in love with them. It's hard for them to believe that the singers prefer to be in love with somebody before having sex. And it isn't just about a casual fling or, bed hopping. My sensibilities you aggravate. So, again, I think it's more of just this person having this conviction about being in love first before having sex, and that's why, they may have a lot of friends, but none of them are lovers, and then suggesting that maybe this person with a wonderful ass is causing the singers to reconsider maybe that idea that sleeping with somebody before they're in love with them is not not something they want to do. This might be the exception. My sensibilities you aggravate. You've got a wonderful ass. It's so wonderful. You've got a wonderful ass. Okay, so then we come to the bridge, and this bridge part is interesting for a couple reasons. One, Jill Jones has partial co-writing credit for this song, largely from what the story goes, because of this section. She really influenced this bridge in terms of what it ended up being, and coming up with words that kept rhyming over and over, like how all sounded the same and worked when just repeating them one by one. It's a bit, it's not exactly like Bob Dylan's Subterranean Homesick Blues. Those who are familiar with that song, it's just Bob reciting different phrases or words. Most of them, all of them, basically within a stanza or a verse, they rhyme. And it's funny because this, obviously was written and recorded before 1987, but INXS did something very similar called Mediate, and it was the track that was immediately after Need You Tonight, their biggest hit from that album, Kick, from 87. Need You Tonight bleeds into Mediate, and oftentimes on MTV, in the music video, and on the radio, the DJs would just play them together as like one long track, even though there were two separate ones on the record. And on that song, the lead singer Michael Hutchence of INXS, he just recites words, like in Subterranean Homesick Blues. And of course then the video for Mediate riffed on that early video from Bob Dylan, where Bob is holding up the placards with words on them or phrases on them, and then he tosses them aside as it goes through the song. And Michael Hutchence does the same thing for the video for Mediate. And how this relates to that is just the structure of just repeating lines that rhyme. Educate, tolerate, negotiate, communicate, litigate, graduate, appreciate, separate, interrogate, violate, fluctuate, perpetrate, masturbate, stimulate, stimulate. So most of those words don't seem to have a lot to do with the theme of the song, except for those last two, of course. Masturbate, stimulate. Those are the only real have any sexual connotation to them. So it's very clear, to me, that those two words were added last and then repeated because they are the words that seemed to fit the theme of the song better. I don't know if Jill came up with all the words or just some of them, but hey, co-writing credit. She must have done a significant amount here and like I said, influenced what this section of the song would end up being. And I do find it funny that 3 years later, INXS did something very similar, because even in like Subterranean Homesick Blues, it's not just repeating of word after word after word after word. It's phrases. It's several words in a phrase that Bob will say. It isn't just one word, and Mediate by INXS is just one word. So there's some bridge, and I'm probably missing a key connection between Bob Dylan and INXS and Prince. Maybe there was something that somebody did before this, because this was an unreleased song. So, I mean, unless members of the band INXS were privy to Prince bootlegs in 86, 87, when that album would have been written and recorded, how would they even know that this song existed and had this bridge with the lines that rhyme? So please, listeners, if there's something, if there's some other song by another artist that I missed that did something like this that influenced Prince and also influenced INXS, because again, the Bob Dylan song isn't identical to this. It doesn't just repeat line or word after word after word that rhymes like this. So I'm curious. The next verse, you say that you love me, it don't do no good. You want me to trust you, I wish that I could. You cannot build a house with plastic wood. You've got a wonderful ass. So we're going back to the concept of love here. You say that you love me, it don't do no good. So again, as in the previous verse, Prince and Wendy and Lisa indicate that true love before sex is the way to go. So maybe this woman now is indicating that she loves him or them, but there's a trust. There's a trust issue here. You want me to trust you? I wish that I could. You want me to trust you that you say you love me so we can have sex? And it's like almost at this point, Prince and Wendy and Lisa are being pursued. They're no longer the pursuers, they're the pursued. And maybe they've been the pursued the whole time. And it's really just becoming evident now that this woman with a wonderful ass is interested in them. And they're a little hesitant. And they're like, damn, I really want to. You got a wonderful ass. But here are the reasons why I'm hesitating. And it has nothing to do with me being crazy, quirky, or whatever. It's because I'm not sure I love you, or I don't love you, and I'm not sure that you love me, even though you say you do. And, you have some jealousy issues as well. You cannot build a house with plastic wood. That's obviously a reference to a substandard erection. Well, I shouldn't say obvious. To me, it's a reference to a substandard erection. Kind of an analogy, like Three Little Pigs. A house made of straw or sticks, not being as strong as a house made of bricks. And here he's just saying, if you want to have sex with me, and this is where, obviously Prince's male perspective is a little more important or up front. If you want to have sex with me, you need to make sure that I'm completely and fully engaged and aroused. And if it's not real, it's not going to be any good. Can't build a house with plastic wood. You've got a wonderful ass, he repeats. So, again, it's like all this stuff is happening, all of this inner turmoil between their relationship. But at the end of the day, you've got a wonderful ass, and that may be enough. I guess what it is that I hate your idea of fun, but baby, I rate your ass number one. I don't usually have time for babes with no class, but I can always find time for your ass. So it's becoming, I think, a little bit clearer now that Prince or Wendy and Lisa, they're not completely sold on this other person. They maybe don't like their aspects of their personality. They maybe don't think that they're trustworthy. They hate their idea of fun, whatever that means. And they don't think that they have class. I don't usually have time for babes with no class, which implies that this person is not very classy. But I can always find time for your ass. So a nice ass is starting to win out. So if this song was written about, like, if I was Prince's girlfriend at the time that this song was written, and he sang this song to me, I would be a little bit offended. You're basically saying, like, I don't really like you that much. I certainly don't love you, but your body's banging and that ass is on fire. And that's all. That's all I really need. Which, cool if it's a one-night stand. Not so cool if I'm your girlfriend or your, significant other. So that's kind of my take on the song thus far. In the rest of the song, there's some kind of ad-libbing and some interesting little things. I'm not going to dissect them all, but he says, you know what I'm talking about, baby. I'm talking about that ass. Too sexy in here. And then you can hear Wendy and Lisa, the revolution will be heard. The revolution will be heard. Which again, by 84, the revolution was a real thing. It wasn't kind of a concept that was not fully formed during the 1999 era. He repeats, you do not understand my quirky ways. Girl, you've got a wonderful, wonderful ass. And there's some more repeating of, you don't understand my quirky ways. And so here, in this last section of the song, there's some lines that Prince is saying, and then in response, like a response to these lines, you hear in the background some asides by Wendy and Lisa. Yes, and then yes, you're a Gemini. My quirky ways, what? My crazy logic leaves you in a daze. You're in a daze all the time. Got that wonderful ass, yeah. Say you think all my friends are my bedmates. They are. Out there sleeping around all the time. Hey now, baby, true love before sex. True love. You can't relate, yeah? But you've got a wonderful ass, babe. My sensibilities. What sensibilities? You aggravate, baby. This is so boring. I'm so happy. You try to fuck for love, feel me. You can't relate. Yeah, you got a wonderful ass and I like it. I said, I like it. Wonderful. You know I like your ass. And so, again, I think that kind of clearly paints the picture to me that this is a situation between a man and woman, or women and women, where the interest is purely physical for the most part, and the person who's singing is not, again, entirely sold on this other person with the nice ass's personality, their way of life, their sensibilities, what they do for a good time. Who they are, in essence, who they are, is in question. But what's not in question is the attractiveness of their ass. And that may be enough to get them through the night. You try to fuck for love. That's what he says. So this is almost maybe a little bit of a callback to Little Red Corvette. Maybe this woman with the wonderful ass is much too fast. And instead of being enthralled to the point where Prince feels used, he's letting himself feel used. He's going into it with eyes wide open. Like, I don't really like you that much. I'm not sure about you as a person and your personality. But I know I like your ass. So that's Wonderful Ass. That is a song from the Purple Rain Deluxe from 2017. I imagine if there's going to be a future release of a super deluxe version of Purple Rain, this will have to find its way on it again. We don't have this on vinyl. We've got it streaming and we've got it CD, but no vinyl version of this song, as all of the vault tracks that were chosen for the Purple Rain Deluxe release, not released on vinyl. But nonetheless, it's a fun song. I remember when I first heard this, when I was really diving into Prince vault tracks on YouTube in the mid-2010s, it would have been maybe. And, it's like, I was not a big bootleg collector like the old school way, like trading tapes or like getting the magazines and ordering stuff, thinking that, you're getting a fanzine when in reality you were just getting a list of different boots you could buy. And I certainly wasn't going to record stores that sold boots. So YouTube really opened up my ears to a lot of these vault tracks. And Wonderful Ass was an early one that I discovered. Must have been, like I said, maybe 2014 or 15. And it's around this time, like, this was one of the first songs that really gave me a hint of how much Prince music was still out there that I had not heard. And I was fascinated that a song that I thought was this good. I mean, I love this song. A song that I thought was great, like album-worthy song, completely unreleased, never given me like an official cleaned up treatment. It sounded good, so whoever had this version that was floating around had a pretty solid sounding version, in my opinion. Of course, I was listening to it like just on my phone speakers, so I didn't have the most discerning ears at the time. I still don't. People talk about various kinds of listening in mono versus stereo, and different bit rates, and it's just like, okay, whatever. I don't really care that much. Does it sound good to me is all I really care about. And can I clearly hear the music and the lyrics and the vocals? And if the answer is yes, then it's good enough for me. And this song was definitely good enough for me when I heard it, and it's good enough for me now. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. This has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. You can find the show pressrewind.net on YouTube and social media, Facebook, X, we'll call it X. Okay, Instagram, Threads, and they have a Discord, so check it out. Links are going to be in the show notes. And until next time, thank you very much, and goodbye.